Welcome, Sarah. It's such a wonderful moment to have you here. You and I were talking about it's taken us a year to get here because we were planning to do this in Sedona about this time last year in June when you and I were there. We did try to do it in person and it didn't work out. So, probably for good reason. Welcome.
Thank you. It's just delightful to be here, Alina. You've got a great following, and the book is amazing. And of course, I adore you and love you. So it's just great to join you on this.
No, thank you. I mean, yes, it was one of those sort of well overdue, but I would love to, the purpose of all of these audacious conversations is really to go down one of the three pillars of how I defined or redefined audacity, which is courage, care, and non-conformity. And we could go down one route or the three of them. Will follow the energy as always. But before we do that, I would love for you to introduce yourself, maybe with something audacious.
Okay, great. Um, well, I don't ever feel particularly audacious, Alina. And at the same time, I'm a small town girl from the middle of the Midwest. I grew up in this little community of 25,000 people. My career has followed some real portal moments. Now I am a coach to incredibly successful owners, founders, and C-suite leaders. And, I have on my roster right now a C-suite leader of a Fortune 20 company who has 70,000 people in their community, 3 times almost the number of people in the town I grew up in, which feels actually quite audacious. I've never really, I often think, who am I to be living this life? It's just incredible and an honor, and I'm humbled by it daily.
Oh, that's amazing. And of course, I mean, we know who you are. You definitely, deserve to be in that seat, Sarah, I would say to you for sure. And I'm sure they're very lucky to have you as their trusted advisor and coach and confidant and everything that you are. But if we were to choose maybe one of those three pillars, courage, care, non-conformity, where does your energy go?
I thought about this a lot because I listen to the conversations that you have. And I think, that a lot of my clients are neurodiverse. Even the Fibonacci research project that I'm doing has to do with incredibly successful leaders who have some neurodiversity. And even so, I think probably where most of my life and leadership has been is in the pillar of care. I came out of mental health. I was an entrepreneur and a mental health therapist here in the States, where I sat in a real quiet, small, private, intimate way with my clients, one family, one couple, one person at a time, just quietly holding space for people to heal, which took huge amount of care. And somewhere along the road, I had this opportunity where I think I was stuck. I call it the excellence plateau. I don't know if you've heard me talk about this, Alina, where you're a little bored and you're a little burnt out. And I was there in my career as an entrepreneur and as a therapist. And I realized I wanted to expand my impact, my reach. And that led me to that portal moment, which was audacious, to launch my coaching career. And I had no idea at that time how powerful my background of working with families with neurodiversity, with mental health issues, and communication, emotional intelligence. I had no idea how well that would serve me in the world of high stakes coaching. And it's really been incredible. It's really just been beautiful.
And I would love to explore that. Like I know actually what you and I have also got in common is a lot of this work, on emotion intelligence and with emotion intelligence in the
Right.
corporate. So I know you've also got that to your range of tools that in the corporate work that you do. But I'm curious because, yes, especially now with so much uncertainty in the world, your experience and credibility in the therapeutic domain, I'm sure it comes in very handy. So how does that show up in the new world?
Yeah, great question. I would say, so I get really interesting that the intersection of where my clientele comes from, I think is quite fascinating. Most of the time I have leaders who have huge goals for their business, challenges within that, and often they have a secret, private, personal challenge at the same time. So they might be struggling with a neurodiversity, they might be struggling with emotional intelligence themselves, they might be struggling with a mental health issue, or someone in their family might be struggling with that. So what's fascinating, and I didn't realize this, when I first became a coach, I actually had an incredibly successful multimillionaire leader say to me, who we'd had lunch probably for about 2 hours, and he was having this really difficult, dark time in life. Business was going well, but he was struggling in his marriage, and his father had just died. And he's a brilliant neurodiverse leader. I bet we had lunch for about 2 hours, and at the end of it, he said to me, "Oh my God, Sarah, this is the best conversation I've had in a decade. You have got to become a professional executive coach." And at the time, I had a thriving mental health therapy business. I had other therapists that were working with me, but something about that, I could feel the energy and the excitement behind it. That has served me incredibly well. So I'll get these challenging cases that I think most business or corporate executive coaches say, yeah, I'm not taking that kind of a referral. So I had a hedge fund from New York City recently come in, 3 partners. The oldest founding partner was about to retire, and one of their interns came forward, and he'd been sexually inappropriate.
Wow.
And then a dozen more interns came forward. And so I came in to work with the leadership team and the 2 partners. I mean, this was a grandfather figure who was beloved. So we had to work through, how do they handle that kind of betrayal and continue to move business forward? I've come in if a senior leader has died unexpectedly. I get really challenging issues. Sometimes I'll be hired by a leader, in fact, often, because they have some kind of trauma, or some kind of issue themselves that they're dealing with. Maybe autism, maybe OCD, ADHD. We know there's a huge percentage of owners and founders who have ADHD. So they'll come in knowing that those issues are impacting their ability to lead. And Alina, the reason why I picked care is interesting because my clients often will call me bold, which would fall under maybe courage. But I think what is attractive, what is beautiful in why clients choose me is how I hold space. That there's just not anything someone could tell me or an experience that they've had that I can't hold unconditionally and support them and be their confidential sounding board and care about them through whatever it is that they're going through, whether it's personal or professional.
Wow. And I can see that, what I know of you, of course, Sarah, and as your Enneagram 2, that you would be an incredible holder of a safe container. But it's interesting is, even if I feel I know a lot about you, I never appreciated the percentage of the neurodiverse work that you're doing. It's incredible. And because of my own experiences, with my son, Dan, I do have a lot of experience of it. And of course, there is such a direct correlation between that as a spectrum, which is very wide, and mental health. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I've been working since 2021 on a research project. It's called the Fibonacci Project. It's based on the Fibonacci sequence, which is a mathematical sequence. It goes like this. It's the sequence of the 2 numbers in the sequence, adding them together comes up with the next number in the sequence. So 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 2 = 3, 2 + 3 = 5, and so on. And the reason why I love the Fibonacci sequence, and the reason why I've named my signature offering the Fibonacci, is because it's really nature's answer. We see the Fibonacci sequence in nature everywhere. We see it in our thumbprints. We see it in how the sunflower seeds on a sunflower emerge, or a snail shell, or even in our spiral galaxy, the Milky Way. The way we are expanding is according to the Fibonacci sequence. And the reason why the research project is this, and now my signature offering, and even the book that I'm writing is based on that research, is because so often, especially men, try and force and push through to make things happen, when actually effortless success is what makes things so beautiful. So I've been doing this research project, interviewing neurodiverse individuals who are incredibly successful, millionaires, multimillionaires, and billionaires. And if you have listeners who are on LinkedIn Live who want to participate in this, I would love to interview people who fit this category, who are owners, founders, and leaders that are neurodiverse with great success. What I've been looking at is, we know that when you have a neurodiverse profile, your brain profile is quite spiky, meaning you have areas of huge genius and then really some gaps. And my theory has been, when we have these gaps, that leaves space for people to doubt themselves, for doubts and fears to creep in. And I have some core self-doubts and beliefs that I'm interviewing people around to see how do we bridge that gap. It's really been fascinating, and all that research has led up to the Happy Success Formula, which I'm working on, and I'm testing, and I'm in the process. I have a keynote on this. I'm in the process of writing a book, but really right now I'm testing the theories.
Yeah. I love that. I love that, Sarah. And actually, as you were talking about the zone of genius where on the spectrum can be, the spiky profile, and I almost called my my book, there was a lot about the spiky profile when I was first thinking about my own book, The Audacity Spectrum. But, the thing that comes with being incredibly good at something and maybe not so good, and that wide gap, which is narrow, but also it's links to what I call the mood extremes for people like that, because they're much more intense, and they, much more amplified and accentuated. So it's learning to self-regulate. And I always say, you can't get into the middle, but at least you can learn to sustain both the highs and the lows, and not get really sidetracked by either.
Yes, 100%. And that's why I think some people seek me out, is for that emotional intelligence component. So
and the emotional regulation, I think it's really helping them to regulate.
It's the emotional capacity and the depth and the grit. So I might have a leader reach out who's building a business, but they're personally struggling with maybe something in their own life, grief, loss, a divorce, a diagnosis, and they recognize sometimes it's past trauma. One of the leaders that I worked with most recently, I spent 3 years with a man who's a billionaire, and he hired me specifically because he knew that the trauma he suffered as a child from an alcoholic and abusive father was impacting his ability to lead the business. And even though the business was being incredibly successful, he was feeling so deeply unfulfilled in his relationships, personal and professional. So the three components of the Happy Success Formula, the first is self-expansion. Second is genius and purpose. And the third actually is intelligent connection. It's being able to create and develop emotional grit, depth, and capacity in yourself so you can create those relationships that you want. And when you have that spiky profile, it's difficult to really slow down and be proactive, to self-regulate and not just be reactive. And I mean, that's hard for us who aren't on the spectrum as well, right? We get triggered and we go 0 to 60 like that. So it's a real component of professional executive presence.
Totally. And so I'm curious about, I mean, you developed the formula, you've got the Fibonacci in the research going on. How in practice, how are you playing with those two, the research and also the formula?
Yeah, it's excellent. So the research is informing me when I work with clients. It's informed me in how I came up with these 3 areas. Self-expansion, and that's where we begin, because you have to start with a leader who's willing to look at themselves and who's willing to be growth-minded, who's willing to, I call it, elevate their consciousness. So we did rebranding as a company last year, purposefully to call in conscious leadership. The world right now is filled. I mean, I live in the States, and right now we have examples of, unfortunately, not what I would call conscious leadership. We have reactive, bully leadership happening right now instead of conscious leadership grounded in emotional intelligence, grounded in relationships. So the research has led me to these components: the self-expansion. The second area is genius and purpose, which really is about figuring out what your zone of genius is. You and I started the conversation where I said, as a therapist, I was on the plateau of excellence. I was bored and burned out. What I realized was really what my zone of genius is, where work feels effortless. It's just fun, is coaching. And when we align where we are most alive with our purpose, creating the impact and the legacy that we want, that's that second component. And then finally, the third component of the happy success formula is intelligent connection, which is emotional intelligence applied to personal and professional relationships, so that you can live a deeply fulfilling life, one where everything comes together. How does that apply to your audacity theories and what you've written in the book, your care, courage, and
the non-conformity bit, which is the risk?
I think it's very related. I'd love to hear your theory and how all that comes together, because I think it does. But
yes, I mean, it's all it's all the same. We just cut it with in different ways, I suppose. But for me, I mean, yes, the 3 pillars of care, courage, and non-conformity are the theme, but the book, you call it conscious, leadership, or there are all sorts of different type of leadership. Now I call it audacious leadership, which has got both the courage and the care and the non-conformity. But I developed, and from the book, I developed this the 8 A's of audacity, and it's the audacity star, the North Star. So it's a circular one. So you've got the the acknowledgement, which I now have developed a sort of newish concept of the 20 seconds of audacity. So not in a reactive, but in a much more proactive way. So knowing, facing your own reality, that's the acknowledgement, then the assurance, which is yes, then it's the assertiveness, which is the courage to say no. So all of those sort of 8 A's, which you're talking about, your 9, and so we're all trying to bring it under some sort of a structure and common language, I think, that we can all relate to. It's the relationship, as you said, or the relational intelligence, and all of those different type of intelligences, because it's not just the analytical intelligence, as we now know. Even the musical intelligence, all and listening to you as an effortless. Part of me wants to say, Sarah, I know that is such a, the ultimate, we all aspiring to the effortless way of coaching, or effortless way of doing things. And yet life will have both sides of it. So I always, and I can't, it was, someone challenged me recently as well, because my one word for 2025 is ease. I think you and I were talking about
Beautiful.
ease.
So good. I love that for you.
But someone said, I didn't know you cannot have ease without having the hardship on the other side, which really stopped me in my tracks. And you can't have joy without having some grief. And that's true. You have to accept both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
They come together.
Alina, it makes me think about, some of my story that I've had trauma in my background. We had our second son die. Our oldest, our firstborn, is 24. And one of the lessons that I learned from Charlie's death, and I think this is very true, it also has to do with how I'm able to hold space for people. Afterwards, we're young, we'd had secondary infertility. It just been the worst experience. I'm sure you can imagine. My mentor at the time said to me, and it was quite poetic, he said, Sarah, it's moments like these that help us discover the shores of our soul. It helps us discover the depth and breadth of life. And at the time I was in such grief and so angry that I didn't quite get what he meant. But I definitely found the gift on the other side of that experience, which is holding the worst moments of life, the trauma, the grief, the challenges, abuse, whatever it is that our clients are dealing with, and for me in my life that I've dealt with, at the same time as we hold these most beautiful, gorgeous moments of life. And I do think there's some truth to the person who was challenging you on that when we experience the full extreme, the fullness, the depth and breadth of life, we have a much better understanding and ability to be grateful for what we have. We've had a heck of a month, Alina. I don't know if I've told you about this. We had one of my son's close friends and his girlfriend's brother died tragically recently. It was just awful, a 25-year-old. And I had a retinal tear and emergency surgery. And it's been, I'm going to say it sucked. And at the same time, what I am so aware of is that really all we have is now. What we get to lean into with courage and with love, which is the care, is what we have now. And in my life, the things that really matter are my family, my friends, and the clients that I care for. And I always think about caring and serving clients. I don't think of them as customers at all. I care deeply about who they are and what they're going through. And they often hire me because they are in those very dark moments. Because they are wrangling with what's the way through. And at the same time, how do I build my business or achieve the legacy? So I usually get people in two places. They are young, thinking about how do I wanting to create the hockey stick goal, or they've built the business, but they're miserable. They've sacrificed so much to have the life and the success that they have. Sometimes they've even sacrificed their relationships with their children or their spouse. And so part of what we're doing is helping them come back to their authentic self.
Yes.
And there's audacity in that. There's audacity in that when you've been super successful. One of the biggest fears a lot of my clients have is that people don't actually like them. They like them for the lifestyle that hanging out with them gives them. So it's really, that's an intense, clear, I think it's okay that she pushed you on that. How did it feel in the moment?
No, for me, I love to be challenged. That is nothing that I love more than being challenged, because it's for me, there is always something in the challenge, especially if it comes with, which I always assume positive intent anyway. So I loved it. But it made me think about, yes, of course you can have ease, but you have to be okay with holding the other side of it, like everything else. And what's actually alive for me, and I'm going to acknowledge Lisa's comment
Yeah,
in
hi,
the chat.
Lisa.
Such a
Yay.
beautiful conversation. Thank you. But when you were talking about moments,
Yeah.
what came to mind is the butterfly moment. Do we go here or there? This or that?
Yes.
And then you and I mean, that's a sort of, what we've connected so deeply through our 1 week or 8 days in Mexico, seeing the monarch butterflies. And that metaphor of the butterfly has stayed with me. I think will stay until the end forever. And I use it with my own clients of the metamorphosis for the caterpillar into the butterfly is the soup. And
Yeah.
how long are we able to sustain that soup? So it's like, okay, we're in the soup, Sarah. That's okay.
Holy smokes. Talk about audacity and the Fibonacci, the beautiful, amazing, this world we live in is astonishing. So I don't know if your listeners know this. When caterpillars spin the cocoon, that they literally inside the cocoon liquefy.
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow, whatever used to be this in the caterpillar is told now it's going to become an antenna. It creates these butterflies, and the monarch butterflies travel all the way, I think, from Canada, where
Canada.
Lisa is,
Mm-hmm.
down to Mexico. We had this incredible opportunity. What was that? 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, maybe now.
Yeah, it was 2.5 years ago. It'll be 3 years in December.
Yeah, so we got to go see where the monarch butterflies migrate in Mexico, which was just stunning. And Alina and I at that time, I think I think you were in the process. Maybe you declared you would write the book on
Mm-hmm.
that, and I declared it during that trip that I was going to be more audacious, more bold, and more courageous in who I wanted to serve as clients.
Mm-hmm.
And both of us went through our own soupy process, I think, of becoming the women and the leaders that we have become, of the businesses. We've both continued to grow and transition and develop. I think our own spirits, our own consciousness. You've had incredible success with your book. It's been so fun to watch. And that's been part of your emerging as the true butterfly, as the monarch.
Thank you for that. I will receive it with love. And I'm also, one of the things for me is not getting complacent, because you're talking about the sort of tragedy and traumas, even so close to home when you lose a young 25. And, again, I won't talk about it here. There was a very good family friend that we had the same beginning of this year in Africa. And it reminds us of the fragility of life, and as you said, stay in the moment and really embrace both the light and the shadow, and some spikier than others, and enjoy the moments.
Yeah, definitely. Alina, I would invite your audience, the people who are listening to our LinkedIn Live, especially if they fit that Fibonacci
Mm-hmm.
profile, if they're interested in being part of that research project, they can reach out to me. And also, I would invite, if you have a leader or a founder who's listening, who's very much interested in exploring with me this depth of, maybe there's something happening with them in their business or their personal life, I have a gift for the audience, which is they could have just a moment, some time alone with me. I think my most precious resource is time. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if people do this typically on your LinkedIn Lives, but if somebody really wanted to explore that with me, I would offer them, as a thank you to you, some time to that individual. So they could reach out to me. I'm sure you'll put it in the show
Thank you.
notes.
Yes, and I think, it's sort of LinkedIn Live is a bit more typical, but yes, I think it's, if anyone, they can just go some in the comments, and where would they find you actually, Sarah? What's the easiest?
So they would find me. I'm on LinkedIn, and obviously on my website at fruehlingcoaching.com, Fruehling, coaching.com. So they can just find me either of those places. I have paused my social media presence on Facebook and Instagram right now.
Yes, I think it is sort of narrowing and to expand in other places, and and then you also have a newsletter, don't you? I mean, we're running the Audacious Leadership on, and then also the Authentic Leadership on LinkedIn. But you have your own version.
Yeah, I've recently rediscovered and kind of reworked my newsletter, which was the Momentum Journal, into the Leadership Horizon, and I've changed that because I'm changing with the times. The leaders that I'm working with, so I have C-suite leaders in Fortune 20 companies right now in America because of executive orders. Some of these companies are actually in a state of crisis and have declared an emergency. It's very hard to be compliant when we don't know what we're being compliant to. So part of the newsletter, and you can sign up for that on LinkedIn or at my website, is to keep leaders who want to be in touch with today's issues at the forefront. And so we're addressing things that leaders today are struggling with, things around culture, AI, how to be a leader in a world that's role modeling bully leadership when you want to be an open-hearted leader that cares for your people, your company, and the planet. All of those things are addressed. So I hope people will check that out.
I'm sure they will. That's beautiful. And I realize we are at time, but for sure, let's have, I mean, you and I have waited for a year to have this conversation. We shall continue it, and then maybe we'll do it here, live again, or in a different format altogether. So good luck with it all.
Yes, always a yes to you, Alina. So thanks for having me. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. And I can't wait to, for the book to be out. Hopefully soon. We'll celebrate that.
An audacious thing, isn't it?
We'll celebrate that. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, everybody who was, with us here or will join us later. Thank you.